I'm Tasha Halevi, and this is Footprint Radio. Daily indoor per capita water use in the typical single-family home is 69.3 gallons, and that's just indoor use. Irrigation use often accounts for even more than indoor use. Supply to buildings is the third largest category for water use, only behind thermoelectric power and irrigation. Only 14% of that water is lost to evapotranspiration and reuse, and the other 86% discharges into the nation's water bodies. How do we make the water paradigm shift to get to water-conscious cities, buildings, and people? One of our guests today, Melissa Essex Elliott of Denver Water, will discuss their programs, rebates, incentives, and clever marketing that has shown reductions in water use since 2002. And later, BGBG member Jeff Woodward will share the green tip for improving your water use habits. But first, Tony Wong joins us as an international leader in integrated environmental management of water systems. Wong is a principal at EDA-AECOM and professor of civil engineering at Monash University in Australia. Wong is known for integrating research and practice in sustainable water management. He has published over 100 journal articles, chapters for UNESCO, and was editor-in-chief of Australian Runoff Quality, a guide to water-sensitive urban design. Wong has served as a government advisor in many capacities, including serving in the Prime Minister's Science, Engineering, and Innovation Council's Working Group on Water for Cities. This is the Boulder Green Building Guild's Footprint Radio on KGNU Boulder, KGNU Denver. Tony, thank you for joining us today.
Good morning.
Colorado's semi-arid climate lends itself to a constant threat of drought. That, in combination with growing populations, urban environments, water laws that prohibit aggressive water-saving strategies, seem to be a bit of a recipe for disaster. What are the factors that characterize a water-sensitive city, and what is the critical point where aggressive water conservation must play a role in maintaining a city?
There are many factors, Tasha, that characterize a water-sensitive city. In some sense, when we define the attributes of a water-sensitive city in Australia, we don't look at simply just the notion of providing water security for the population. It's just as important for us to think about how we manage water for the protection of the environment, for the protection of water resources in environments where we harvest water. And also, an attribute of a water-sensitive city has a lot to do with the community and the social and institutional capital of the city in terms of the capacity of that city to innovate, the capacity of that city to understand the scarcity of water and to manage water in a sensitive way that reflects its significant value as a precious resource. In terms of what the critical points are, I think that every city, every urban environment will be different. There are some cities, especially many cities in European countries, whereby providing protection and resilience in response to a changing climate is really important, while in other parts of the world you find that the trigger point might be in relation to drought and in relation to a rapidly growing population and increasing scarcity of water. In Melbourne a few years ago, the trigger point was more in relation to issues of environmental pollution related to stormwater. And progressively through that, there were a lot of initiatives looking at how Melbourne as a city manages its stormwater, both as a precious resource, but also as a potential source of pollution to its neighboring environment.
So not only are we looking at these situations case by case, but also as a dynamic situation that is constantly changing.
I think that is the case, and that in fact is the root of a lot of the problems that we face at the moment, whereby the management of water has been highly compartmentalized.
So once we determine and start to classify a city or a site even as a water-sensitive location, what are the next steps?
In some sense, Tasha, we don't determine or classify a city. I think every city has the potential to become a water-sensitive city. And what I mean by that is that every city has opportunities and constraints for good, sustainable water management. Since we really need to examine the particular local context of cities or even precincts within cities in terms of their opportunities and constraints in managing water in a sustainable way. And that's why we promote the broad philosophical pillars, if you like, pillars for a water-sensitive city. We should go and then look at every city to examine how best to achieve those principles of what a water-sensitive city ought to be.
So one of the things you have touched on is this whole concept of moving away from compartmentalizing our water uses. For example, we are not linking stormwater to supply water and energy to water. However, in your recommendations now and to governments and to design teams, it becomes apparent that linking these concepts promotes a greater opportunity for water conservation. So what are some of these links, and how do we move towards integration of water conservation as a whole system?
Yeah, I think that really is the key, whereby we can no longer compartmentalize the different urban water streams. We can't look at the drinking water that we bring into our city in isolation from the wastewater that is generated from the city, and also the stormwater, the rainwater that falls onto our city and run off as stormwater from our city. We really need to think about all of them as a resource, and that the hierarchy of use of water becomes really important. The water that is used for one purpose could often be recovered, perhaps treated to a lower standard for use for another purpose that doesn't require the high standard in the first place. We at present often treat water to drinking standard for everything, from flushing our toilet, washing our car, watering our lawns, while in fact a small percentage of the water used require water at drinking standard. So if we combine them and start to look at how we look at urban planning, where we combine residential properties with commercial properties and industrial activities in close proximity, we find that the waste of one land use could often be treated mildly to become a resource to another land use. And you can get to use water many times before it ultimately is discharged. Stormwater is another really important resource, whereby stormwater is of better quality than wastewater, and therefore can need only be treated very, very slightly, often with green infrastructure such as constructed wetlands and rain gardens, for it to be used for toilet flushing, watering lawns, for washing cars, and so on. And the residual water out of those activities can then be treated again for a whole range of other potential uses. We need to manage water in its total water cycle.
So we're talking about a lot of large-scale concepts here related to infrastructure that respects water in a new way. But this leads me to two questions. One, how do designers address water on a single site and building scale? And maybe more importantly, what is the role the government needs to take to implement this infrastructure?
Answering your second question first, perhaps, the role of government is a significant role. A lot of the concepts that we are talking about are new concepts, innovative concepts, whereby the private sector has a significant capacity to innovate, but it needs to innovate in an environment, in a safe environment. Someone once mentioned to me that innovation is born out of appropriate risk-taking. If we do not take risks, we often will not innovate. Government has a significant role in providing a secure place for the private sector to experiment and innovate and take the appropriate risks. So government can provide a platform through enabling policies that support, motivate industry, the private sector to innovate in terms of water management. The majority of the delivery mechanism is very much a private sector government partnership. So policy development that deliver policies that are prescriptive of the outcome but not prescriptive of the method towards the outcome is really important. Prescription of a certain action often stifle innovation, while prescription of an outcome in terms of achieving certain targets for water quality improvement and so on often provides a driver for innovation in the private sector. At the local scale, you then find that the whole question of architecture, building architecture, or how buildings are clustered together, or the type of use in terms of mixed use between residential, commercial, within a building, all starts to encourage better integration of the cascade of water uses that I talk about. A really good example, for instance, is that residential development often require water perhaps at a higher standard because of the higher likelihood of human contact in relation to cooking and shower water and so on. You find often commercial buildings have more toilets and therefore require a significant proportion of its water for toilet flushing. If they were in fact designed and housed in the one building as a mixed-use type of development, you find that we do have the opportunity to have a closed loop, a smaller loop, whereby water that's been generated from the residential part of the building could then be reused for toilet flushing in the commercial part of the building. How buildings are designed in terms of its landscape, adjoining landscape, also has a very significant influence in terms of how water is being collected, treated, and reused, while at the same time that landscape is there to provide cooling as well as a good amenity space for those buildings. So we find that the delivery of a water-sensitive city and a holistic integration of sustainable water management cuts across a whole range of scale, from the citywide scale, the precinct scale, down to the street scale, and then into the allotment scale, all of which are linked in terms of the role of public realm, the role of water management, the role of flood management. They are all integrated across all those scales to deliver pieces of the jigsaw, if you like, from a water-sensitive city perspective.
All right. It seems like one of the takeaway messages from that is that no matter what scale you're looking at, we do need to start moving towards a more performance-based metric or code or regulation rather than the prescriptive methodology that we're more typically accustomed to.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the realizations that we certainly have here in Australia is that the social and institutional capacity of a city to innovate is fundamental to delivering a water-sensitive city. You know, we already have amongst the best technologies around. There's been a lot of innovation in science and technology for water management, water recycling, and yet we continually find that they're not well embedded or integrated into cities, and that has a lot to do with the institutional inertia in cities. We set rules, and we are often very reluctant to move with the times as far as those rules and regulations are concerned. We are often very conservative and perhaps lacking in trust of the community and the industry's capacity to adapt and innovate. We certainly find that in cities that we work in, and the whole question of building capacities of cities, of our communities, and of our profession to innovate is one of the key activity that needs to be done to deliver on a water-sensitive city. So I think you're right. I think that you cannot have technology without accompanying social and institutional intervention and development. They do go hand in hand, and that if any of us rely simply on technology to find our solutions for a sustainable future, we often will find ourselves disappointed simply because we haven't looked at the development of some of the social and governance side of water management.
Tony, your thoughts are very insightful. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us today.
It is my pleasure, Tasha.
It's clear that making the paradigm shift to more water-conscious cities means getting everyone on board to make that change. Over the past several years, Denver Water has become known for its aggressive and clever campaigns to encourage water use reduction. In 2006, this included park benches with the seat and seat back cut to a third of the bench with a bright orange sign stating, "Use only what you need." The "Use only what you need" signs also appeared as small squares on otherwise skeletal billboards and bus signs and cars without the full body, and even the naked man that walked around Denver wearing only a "Use only what you need" sign to cover the essentials. In 2009, the Grass is Dumb campaign encouraged reduction in lawn irrigation because your grass wouldn't know any better. And that's just the beginning of it. This summer, Denver is promoting water use reduction with the Man's Time of Month campaign. Here to discuss Denver Water's conservation efforts is Manager of Water Conservation, Melissa Essex Elliott. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you.
Let's start by talking about the Denver water campaigns over the years. Can you describe some of these campaigns and how the message helps you to reach your water conservation goals?
Denver water experienced a very bad drought in 2002 to 2004, and our customers reacted to that phenomenally. They reduced their water use by 30%. And we decided that instead of letting water use go back to normal, we were going to try and keep that message in front of our customers and really capture those water savings permanently. And the idea of conservation, the word conservation itself, tends to have a negative feeling to people. They tend to feel like they have to give up something, and it's kind of hard to get people to buy into something like that. So we came up with the concept of use only what you need, which really promoted don't waste water. And our customers really bought into that concept. They like it, and we try to have a lot of fun with it. If you nag people to get them to change their behavior, that's the last thing they want to hear from you, and they will ignore you. But if you try to have fun and interact with people, and they can identify with your campaign, you can be quite successful.
Sounds like you could be a marriage counselor also.
I don't know about that.
So let's play a soundbite from the 2010 Man Time of Month campaign, and then let's hear what you have to say about the message behind that.
There was a time when men were men, when we chased down mastodons the size of freight trains and tossed them whole on the grill, when we wrestled saber-toothed tigers just for laughs, wore boots made from small furry animals, and opened our car doors with a key, not some sissy remote. There was a time when men were men, and it's time to take that time back. A time to drag our knuckles on the ground until they're raw. And there's only one way to do that, my friend. Pick a time every month when you do your man thing and adjust your automatic lawn sprinklers.
All right, so tell us about what's going on here.
Well, where this ad just left off, the next information you'll hear is you can become a real man and have a men's time of the month by going into your garage every month and changing your sprinkler system to adjust it for the weather. So it's a little bit unexpected for the listener to hear all that healthy male attitude and then hear that. But the reason for this is our research indicates that about half of our water use is used for irrigation. Much of that is for lawns at households. And all of our research throughout the years have shown that if there's a man in the house and there's an irrigation system, that is his domain. And we wanted to encourage our customers to go once a month and adjust their sprinkler system. Customers tend to just set it and forget it. And so this ad is aimed at poking fun at men's time of the month and aimed at giving men something to go do with our sprinkler system and to really have fun with it. It really is meant to be funny and to get your attention and let you interact with it a little bit.
And it really does. So obviously the intent of these campaigns is to encourage water use reduction. What are the priorities of Denver Water in terms of water conservation, and what are the goals that you have set?
Well, I mentioned our goal really came out of that drought that started in 2002, in that we wanted to capture those gains that we'd made, all those behavior changes that people had made in their water use and how they were valuing water. And our board set out a 10-year goal for us, and so by the end of 2016, our customers have to permanently achieve a 22% reduction overall from what they used prior to that drought.
How are you pulling the baselines for each of these customers? Is it individual baselines, or is this a baseline that comes from the collective Denver water use?
The 22% reduction in use goal that we have is a system-wide goal. So what we did is we took the years 1993 to 2001, and we created an average from that. And that's to take into effect things like weather, which affect our water use quite a bit. So the 22% is a reduction from that average, and it would be for our entire system. So it really varies depending on our customers, but we are seeing reductions in use from all customer classes.
If water use is part of the revenue for Denver Water, then what's the incentive for you as Denver Water to promote water conservation?
Well, Denver Water is a governmental agency. Our water utility is funded entirely by rates and by tap fees. We don't receive any tax revenue, nor do we make a profit. So all of our operating costs have to be passed on to our customers, and we try to do that as efficiently as possible and keep rates as low as possible. But one of our programs to increase our water supply in the future is conservation. It's just as important as new water supply planning or reuse water. So we plan for that. We plan that we're going to gradually reduce water use among our customers, and then we buffer that with our reserves that we have. We plan for conservation in our rate structures, and we keep our water rates as low as possible to do that.
If the talk is your campaign, then the walk is the rest of your conservation program. So can you describe some of the other programs that are a part of your conservation plan, the incentives and the rebates and the programs related to water conservation?
Sure. Our Use Only What You Need campaign is really kind of the glue that keeps things together, but we can't really attribute water savings to that campaign. It just keeps the message in front of people. But the real bricks and mortar of conservation are our programs, and we have a program for any type of customer. We serve 1.3 million people, and that's about 25% of the state's population. And anything from rebates on high-efficiency toilets and washing machines to incentive programs for large irrigators, homeowners associations that have all that grass out front. We'll actually pay them to put in weather-based controllers and reduce their water use. Commercial and industrial accounts can sometimes change their processes, and we'll pay them to do that, too, based on their water savings. And, of course, there's lots of education and outreach that go out. We're constantly working with our customers. We also have rules in place, and we enforce those rules. So you can't waste water in Denver. We're in the summer session right now, and so there's no watering between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. And I actually hire about 12 temporary employees during the summer to patrol. And their job really is to educate our customers, not necessarily give out tickets.
It's pretty clear that you've made an impact with these water conservation programs. What has the impact of that really been?
Of course, our goal is 22%. I'm really proud to say that our customers are at about 18% now. So we need to go a little bit further, and we need to make sure that that change that we're seeing is permanent, and we'll do that by 2016. Denver Water itself, I think, is a model. We do serve 25% of the state's population, but we do so with only 2% of the state's water resources.
Wow.
So we're really proud of this program. It's a nationally and internationally recognized conservation program.
It's pretty clear you guys are making a dent and customers are making the change that they need to with the help of your program. So thank you all for your efforts.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for being on the show, Melissa.
Thank you, Tasha.
We've discussed the changes in water use at many scales, but how can you start to conserve water? BGBG member Jeff Woodward of the Center for Resource Conservation presents this week's Green Tip.
With the irrigation season coming up, I have 3 tips to help you save water on your lawn this summer. Tip number 1 is to regularly inspect and tune up your sprinkler system. Turn on each sprinkler zone and look for problems like broken heads, leaks, low heads, and overspray. Fix each problem that you find. Tip number 2 is to adjust your watering schedule with the season. Grass needs more water when it's hot and dry, and less when it's cool and wet, like it has been this month. The seasonal adjustment feature on your control clock makes this easy. Tip number 3 is to take advantage of new technologies and rebates for efficient irrigation. New technologies like weather and soil-based control clocks, stream nozzles, and new types of drip irrigation are great ways to save water while maintaining a beautiful landscape. For more information on efficient irrigation and rebates, please check with your water provider. This is the BGBG Green Tip, and I'm Jeff Woodward.
Thank you for joining us today on KGNU Boulder, KGNU Denver with Boulder Green Building Guild's Footprint Radio. You can podcast the show and learn more about BGBG by going to bgbg.org or searching Footprint Radio on iTunes. To share your green tip on the air, submit your ideas with our online form on the Footprint Radio tab at bgbg.org or emailing radio@bgbg.org. BGBG offers many educational resources, including the upcoming BGBG Product and Service Fair, Saturday, June 5th at Boulder Central Park next to Farmers Market. Thank you to our sponsors at the City of Boulder, Boulder County Business Report, Best Way Insulation, and Blue Valley Energy for taking a step towards greener footprints. I'm Tasha Halevi. This is Footprint Radio.